Let me stop you right here. If you feel overwhelmed, behind, or constantly pushing just to keep up, it's not because you're not doing enough. It's because you're doing too much. Too many tasks, too many adjustments, too many small decisions stealing your focus, and the more effort you throw at it, the more stuck you feel. That's the part nobody warns you about. You wake up ready to work, but by the end of the day, you're drained, and somehow nothing important is finished. Not because you didn't try, not because you wasted time, but because most of your energy went into things that don't actually move the needle. Here's the uncomfortable truth. When effort is scattered, it turns against you. It creates the illusion of progress while quietly killing momentum. And the worst part? It feels responsible. It feels necessary. It feels like what a hard-working person should be doing. But it's a trap. Carl Jung nailed this pattern when he said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Right now, your effort might not be chosen. It might be automatic. And if that's true, then working harder won't fix anything. In fact, it will make the problem worse. Because the issue isn't how much effort you're giving. It's where that effort is going. And once you see what's actually draining you, everything about how you work starts to change. There's a reason your work feels heavier than it should. Not physically heavy, mentally heavy. You sit down to work, and before you've even started anything meaningful, your energy already feels half gone. That's because most of your effort is being spent reacting to messages, reacting to problems, reacting to expectations, real or imagined. None of this feels optional, so you don't question it. But here's what's really happening. You're letting the loudest demand decide where your effort goes. And loud doesn't mean important. This is how effort gets quietly misused, not in big, obvious mistakes, but in small, constant redirections of attention. Carl Jung explained it simply. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Most people read that and think it's abstract. It's not. It shows up when your day fills itself before you choose anything, when urgency replaces intention, when motion replaces direction. You don't decide what matters. You respond to what interrupts, and the more you live this way, the heavier work feels, because nothing ever truly finishes. Effort without intention doesn't compound. It just resets every day. That's why you can work non-stop and still feel behind, because the drain isn't your workload. It's the lack of conscious choice behind it. And until that changes, no system, schedule, or motivation trick will save you. This is where things get uncomfortable, because a lot of what we call discipline is actually avoidance in disguise. You tell yourself you're being responsible. You're staying busy. You're keeping momentum. You're doing what needs to be done. But look closer. Notice how often your effort flows toward tasks that feel urgent, but don't require real commitment. Tasks where nothing is truly at stake. That's not an accident. Carl Jung said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." In everyday terms, that means this. People will work non-stop to avoid one task that forces clarity, because clarity removes excuses. Once you decide what actually matters, everything else becomes noise. And that's scary. Noise feels safe. Noise gives you somewhere to hide. So instead of choosing, you hustle. You stay active instead of decisive. You stay busy instead of exposed. You stay tired instead of accountable. And the trap is subtle. Hustle feels productive because it creates motion. Motion creates relief. Relief feels like progress, but motion without direction is just energy leaking in all directions. That's why you can end a long day feeling both exhausted and unsatisfied at the same time. You didn't fail. You just avoided the work that would have forced you to define a clear outcome. Here's the key insight most people miss. The task you keep postponing isn't hard because it's complex. It's hard because it would change how you measure yourself. Once you do it, you can't pretend anymore. Once you choose it, you can't hide behind preparation. Once you commit, you have to live with the result. So instead, you optimize everything around it. You refine systems, you tweak processes, you get ready. And preparation quietly becomes a permanent lifestyle. Jung warned about this pattern long before modern productivity culture existed. Avoidance doesn't look like doing nothing. It looks like doing everything except the one thing that would actually move your life forward. And until you recognize that trap, no amount of effort will ever feel like enough. Your work style has a hidden part. Most people don't see it. They call it habit, discipline, or personality, but it's something else entirely. Jung called it the shadow, the part of your behavior that runs automatically, unnoticed, until it controls your life. It's not about being bad or lazy. It's about the parts of your mind you haven't made conscious, the parts that quietly decide what you do, when you do it, and how much energy you actually put into things that matter. Think about your day, the emails you answer first, the tiny tweaks you make, the endless preparation before starting real work. These aren't accidents. They're your shadow in action. It's comfortable, it's familiar, it's safe, and it keeps you busy while your high-impact work sits waiting. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Applied to work, the darkness is everything you do automatically because it feels safe, not because it moves the needle. And here's the kicker. The shadow isn't just harmless background noise. It's actively draining your energy. It decides where your effort goes before you even notice. It turns attention into a limited resource, spreads focus thin, and makes progress feel heavier than it should. Most people never notice it because it's subtle. It doesn't feel like sabotage. It feels like productivity. You think you're being disciplined. You think you're working efficiently. But the shadow thrives on that illusion. It makes busyness feel noble. It makes small, safe motions feel like achievement. The shadow also shows up in patterns of avoidance, the tasks you postpone, the decisions you delay, the uncomfortable actions you dodge. These are all signals pointing to high-leverage work, the work your brain resists because it challenges identity, exposes mistakes, or risks failure. Jung explained something critical. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. In your work life, irritation is a signal too. You get frustrated with distractions, inefficiency, or unexpected interruptions. But often, those are mirrors. They reflect the ways you interrupt yourself, delay action, and hide behind activity. Here's the truth most people miss. Your shadow isn't weakness. It's over-adaptation. You've gotten very good at coping instead of choosing. Coping looks like flexibility. Choosing looks like commitment. The shadow keeps you in coping mode because it's easier, safer, less exposed. The moment you bring the shadow into awareness, a new kind of power emerges. You start noticing when energy leaks into unimportant tasks. You see when effort is misdirected. You pause before autopilot takes over. You start reclaiming hours that were quietly being spent on everything except what matters. This is where leverage begins. Not by working harder, not by adding more hours, but by reclaiming the energy you've been giving away unconsciously. By facing the shadow, you stop letting habit dictate output and start letting intention dictate results. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's exactly the point. The first step to producing extraordinary results is noticing where your effort has been stolen by your own habits. Here's the part that most people never slow down enough to notice. The work that creates the biggest results almost never feels efficient at first. It feels awkward. It feels exposed. It feels heavier than it should. And because it feels that way, your mind labels it as risky or premature. So you delay it, not consciously, strategically. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right time. You tell yourself you need more information. You tell yourself you're just being careful. But underneath all that logic is a simple truth. High-impact effort forces a clear outcome. Once you act, something becomes real. And once something becomes real, it can be judged. Carl Jung understood this avoidance pattern deeply. He said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." The more you avoid decisive action, the more mental space it occupies. It turns into background pressure. It drains focus even when you're not working on it. It makes everything else feel heavier than it should. That's why the 90% of effort feels exhausting. It's not that it's hard. It's that it's compensating for what you're avoiding. Low-impact work absorbs time, but protects your identity. High-impact work risks identity, but frees your energy. So most people unconsciously choose safety over leverage. They stay in tasks that keep options open. They avoid tasks that close doors, because closed doors mean commitment, and commitment means you can no longer hide behind potential. Here's the shift that changes everything. Stop asking, "What should I do next?" Start asking, "What action would make the rest of this unnecessary?" That question cuts through noise instantly. The answer is almost always uncomfortable. The answer is almost always uncomfortable. It almost always feels too simple. It almost always carries resistance. And that's how you know it's leverage. Once you act on that 10%, something strange happens. The pressure lifts. The mental clutter clears. The remaining work shrinks instead of expands, because effort finally has direction. The 90% doesn't disappear. It just stops controlling you. And when that happens, output stops being a grind and starts becoming a consequence of clarity. That's the real reason a small amount of conscious effort can outperform endless hustle. Not because it's easier, but because it's honest. At this stage, the problem is crystal clear. Working harder isn't the solution. Most of us operate on autopilot. We pile on effort because it feels productive, because it makes us feel responsible, because it keeps the day moving. But autopilot isn't productive. It's exhausting. It's like pouring water into a bucket full of holes. No matter how much you pour, the results leak out. Carl Jung captured this perfectly. Thinking is difficult. That's why most people judge. Replace thinking with choosing. And it fits our work habits exactly. Choosing is hard. It's uncomfortable. It forces accountability. Most people avoid it by default. And what do they do instead? They react. They busy themselves. They fill their time with tasks that feel urgent, but aren't important. Conscious work is different. It flips the script. It starts with a single, simple question. Why am I doing this right now? Not later, not after a few more steps, right now. It sounds simple, but it's powerful, because that question separates tasks that matter from tasks that are just taking up space. Most tasks collapse under this scrutiny. They show themselves for what they are: distractions, comfort zones, or avoidance. And here's the critical point. Conscious effort doesn't mean doing less. It means doing the right things intentionally. You stop reacting to notifications. You stop optimizing endlessly. You stop working to feel busy. Instead, every action has a purpose. Every effort has direction. The shift may feel uncomfortable at first. Your brain will resist it. It will want to return to autopilot because autopilot is safe. Autopilot avoids risk, decision, and exposure. But here's the magic. Once you start practicing conscious effort, momentum multiplies naturally. You realize you can achieve more in an hour of focused, intentional work than in 3 hours of distracted busyness. You notice how energy is no longer drained by unnecessary tasks. Fatigue comes from progress, not noise. This is the missing piece most productivity systems never talk about. It's not time management. It's attention management. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Applied to your work, until you consciously choose where your effort goes, your day, your energy, is being hijacked by habits, impulses, and default routines. Conscious effort interrupts that hijack. It pauses autopilot. It forces clarity. And with clarity comes leverage. Leverage isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. Doing what multiplies results instead of just filling time. And once that switch flips, everything changes. Work stops being a grind. Work starts being a reflection of intention, focus, and strategy. The real question is, will you practice it? Or will you keep pouring effort into the wrong places, wondering why nothing ever multiplies? Because conscious effort isn't optional if you want output that actually counts. Here's the part most people never reach, the shift that separates the busy from the truly effective. It's not a new tool. It's not another app. It's not a hack or trick. It's a mindset shift, a decision about how you choose your effort. And it's simple in theory, brutal in practice. Stop trying to prove yourself. Start trying to produce. Most people spend their days proving they're working hard, proving they're reliable, proving they're capable. Proving feels safe. It's measurable. It's visible to others. And most importantly, it protects you from exposure. Producing is different. Producing is visible too. But it's risky. It's final. It shows whether your effort actually made a difference. And that's why your brain resists it. That's why high-leverage work feels heavy. That's why you procrastinate, tweak endlessly, and fill your day with tasks that don't really matter. Carl Jung nailed this. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Here's how that translates to output. When you focus on producing, your energy aligns. When you focus on producing, your distractions lose power. When you focus on producing, effort multiplies naturally, because producing forces a choice. Producing forces clarity. Producing forces action. And the crazy thing? Once you commit to producing, most of the noise that dominated your day vanishes. Those low-impact tasks that felt urgent suddenly look meaningless. All the small, safe motions suddenly drain less energy because your mind is no longer serving autopilot. The one shift is this. Before every task, ask yourself, is this producing something real? Or am I just proving I'm busy? That single question changes everything. It turns resistance into a signal. Resistance is no longer a stop sign. It's a compass. The harder a task feels, the more likely it's high leverage. The more it grows in your mind when you avoid it, the more important it is. Most people avoid this question. That's why they stay exhausted, spinning in circles, feeling like they're working hard but getting nowhere. Those who ask it consistently, they work less, focus more, and watch output multiply. often 10x faster than the people around them. It's not magic. It's conscious effort applied where it actually counts. And once you make this shift, the rest of your work life changes. Deadlines feel manageable instead of crushing. Decisions feel lighter because clarity replaces noise. Momentum builds naturally instead of forcing itself. This is the shift that turns busy into effective, effort into leverage, motion into impact. And the truth is, it's waiting for you, right now. The only question is whether you'll take it. Let's bring it all together. You've seen it. Most of your effort isn't working for you. It's working against you. Scattered, reactive, autopilot effort. Busy work disguised as progress. The reason most people stay exhausted and stuck isn't because they're lazy. It's because they're not conscious of where their energy goes. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." In work terms, that means your habits, routines, and default choices have been running your day, not you. The shift is simple. Notice where your effort is leaking. Focus on the tasks that actually produce results, not just tasks that prove effort. Confront the resistance. Let it guide you to high-leverage actions instead of avoiding them. Ask yourself before every action, am I producing or just proving I'm busy? That one question changes everything. Because once effort is conscious, momentum multiplies naturally. Your energy stops draining into noise, your mind stops running on autopilot, your work stops feeling like a grind and starts feeling like leverage. And here's the truth most people never face. You don't need more hours. You don't need more discipline. You don't need another productivity system. You need awareness. You need intentionality. Once you get that, the results follow. 10 times more output isn't about working harder. It's about working smarter, sharper, and with purpose. Most people stay busy. A few get precise. The choice is yours. So here's your challenge, and I want you to take it seriously. Tomorrow, don't just go through the motions. Don't let autopilot decide your day. Instead, watch closely. Notice every task you start automatically. Notice every time you feel resistance. That resistance? It's not a warning. It's a signal. A signal pointing to the work that actually matters. Ask yourself, with every single action, am I producing something real, or am I just proving I'm busy? And don't just answer in your head. Pause, decide, commit. Take one step that moves the needle, no matter how uncomfortable it feels. Notice how often you've been filling time instead of creating impact. Notice the tasks you've avoided because they feel exposed or final. Now, face them. Start with just one. Make it the real. Finish it. Watch what happens to everything else. The clutter disappears, the noise fades, and suddenly your day feels lighter instead of heavier. This isn't a one-time test. Make it a habit. Every morning, check yourself. Every task, check yourself. Every time your mind whispers, just do something small, remind yourself, small motion doesn't equal progress. Only action that produces counts. Most people will never do this. They'll stay busy, exhausted, and frustrated, thinking effort alone is enough. But you can be different. You can stop wasting energy on autopilot. You can focus on the work that multiplies results. And the best part? Once you start, it compounds. Every decision you make consciously becomes leverage. Every small win builds momentum. Every moment you resist distraction and choose impact gets easier. Your challenge isn't easy. That's the point. But it's the exact step that turns ordinary effort into extraordinary output.